Good morning, all. Welcome to the webinar on energy efficiency improvement in boiler systems, organized by Energy Management Center Kerala. As you all know, Energy Management Center Kerala is under Department of Power, Government of Kerala, is the state designated agency to Bureau of Energy Efficiency under Ministry of Power, Government of India. We are into the field of energy efficiency activities and energy conservation activities from 1996. And we were continuously organizing training programs as well as various energy efficiency improvement projects in Kerala. But due to this COVID situation, we cannot conduct live training programs. So we have moved into the online platform for conducting these awareness training programs. In the post-COVID session, we were limited to conduct training programs because we cannot invite participants from all over India coming over here. But in case of this online platform, as of now, there are 55 participants around all over India. And this added advantage of this online webinar portal. And today's topic is, as you can all see, and it's energy efficiency improvement in boiler systems. And it's been handled by R. Nesamani, who is the Joint Director of Petroleum Conservation Research Association, Chennai. PCRA is in the field of energy audit and energy conservation activities from long back. And Nesamani, he is a BE certified energy auditor and an EMS lead auditor. He took his BTech from NIT Trichy and an MBA from School of Petroleum Management. He is having a total working experience of 16 years in energy sector. He formerly worked in Reliance Energy Limited and GAIL India Limited, and then he joined PCRA, Petroleum Conservation Research Association. He was there for the last 3 years. And he was also a BE certified energy auditor and have conducted 30 energy audits and 5 PAT audits for the designated consumers. He is the lead auditor of Energy Management System ISO 50001, and he has conducted more than 100 presentations and has trained so many people. So he is having well knowledge in the field of energy efficiency improvement in boiler systems. And on behalf of EMC and all participants, I welcome Mr. Nesamani. So you can start the presentation, sir. We can see you. Hello, sir. Hello. So you can see you, but your voice is not audible. Hello, sir. Now we can hear you. You can start the presentation. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, sir. You can start the presentation, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, you have given the introduction, no?
I have already introduced you, given the introduction, and I welcomed you also, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I think at that time some issue with the speaker, sir. No
Yes,
problem,
yes.
sir. You can start the presentation.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sir, for a warm introduction. Good morning to the participants from various industries and EMC Kerala team and PCRA team from various zones. On behalf of PCRA, I would like to welcome you all for the presentation on energy efficiency improvement in boiler systems. I am R. Nesamani and I am the Joint Director in PCRA Chennai. I am a certified energy auditor and energy management system lead auditor. Today, I will present my learnings about the energy audit of boiler systems and 20 techniques to improve its energy efficiency, which will surely reduce the thermal energy consumption of the industry. I have added case studies from energy audits of PCRA and BEE and from other sources to support the credibility of these methods. I'm really delighted to meet you all in this forum and happy to present my views today. As the topic needs vast coverage, I'll take 1.5 hours to complete this presentation. During the presentation, if you have any queries, please put it in chat box. We will discuss after presentation. So this is, I hope my screen is visible fully.
Yes, sir. Yes. We can see your slide.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have given an introduction about myself. I'm Nesamani, Joint Director in PCRA Chennai. We'll move on to the next slide. This is the flow of the webinar. It will be like introduction of PCRA. We'll see about the boiler and its types, boiler system energy audit, what is the approach and what are the tools we will be using for audit, and performance assessment of boiler systems and losses, and factors affecting the boiler efficiency, the energy efficiency improvements, action plans with case studies. I wanted to stop my webcam. I think if it is visible, my slides are visible, then okay, we'll move on.
Yes, sir. Your slides are visible.
Okay, sir. We'll see about energy efficiency improvements, action plans, 20 action plans I will elaborate, but there are many action plans I may miss because it's a vast scope topic with case studies, and finally we will have a conclusion and discussion. This is the flow of the introduction about PCRA. Our vision is to become a center of excellence for energy conservation. Actions towards achieving our visions are like we have been conducting a trainings to industries on energy conservation techniques, and we have been conducting energy audits for industries at all levels, means starting from PAT audits for designated consumers to MSME audits. We have been conducting audits. We have conducted more than 10,000 energy audits till date. And we provide consultancy to implement energy management system ISO 50001 for industries to keep continual improvement in energy performance. This is our YouTube link for PCRA India, and this is our Twitter handle. If you follow our YouTube and Twitter, you will continuously getting the updates about energy conservation. So first, we'll move on to the small introduction about the boiler. Boiler is a pressurized vessel which converts water into steam using a heat energy by burning a fuel. We give a fuel and air through burner, and it will because of its combustion, it will produce heat energy. That heat energy is absorbed by the water, and the water will get converted into steam. This is a simple and brief introduction about the boiler. Types of boiler, we have various types of boiler as per its pressure and applications. We have many types like fire tube boiler and water tube boiler, packaged boiler, FBC, and pulverized fuel boiler, which is mostly used in thermal power plants at high temperatures. And stoker fired boiler, it has two types, spreader stoker and chain grate stoker. So second topic is like how to do an energy audit of boiler system. What is the approach and what are the tools we will be using during the audit? So the audit approach is like first thing, if you go to any industry, we have to calculate the thermal baseline for the plant or industry. Means in terms of specific energy consumption, how much thermal energy they are using to produce 1 metric ton of the product output. That we have to calculate and find, so that will be a baseline specific energy consumption. So after that, what we have to do, we have to compare that baseline with the benchmark baseline of for the applicable industry or the process wise. For example, if any, for example, let's take a rice mill. There may be having some 1000 kilocal per metric ton of rice product. So that we have to compare with other industries, so that we can know what is our status, whether we are lagging or is there any scope of improvement is there or not. That we have to find out. Third is we have to study the existing energy consumption pattern, so to find the avoidable energy losses in the boiler and steam systems. Fourth is as per the findings, we have to list down the action plans to improve the SEC, and we have to prioritize them as per the impact on SEC and the cost of implementation, economics, and overall economics also, with the payback period that we have to do. As per the priority and economics, we have to implement the action plans one by one. The final step is, after implementing, surely the specific energy consumption will come down. So we have to find SEC again and compare with the initial baseline, so that will give how much improvement we have achieved in energy performance. So this is the approach we will be using for energy audit of thermal system. So tools, I have told that we will be using two tools. One is a steam balance diagram. So whenever we go to any industry for a boiler and steam system audit, we have to draw a single line diagram of the steam, how the steam flows through to various processes and what are the pressures and temperature. So it will give fair idea about which process consumes more energy and which process consumes more energy than its required energy. Means the temperature may be required temperature and pressure may be lesser, but it may be we may be supplying steam at high pressure and temperature. Those things and leakages, those things we can approximately find out. So second tool is analyzing the energy basket of the unit. So whenever we go to industry, we have to find what are the various energy forms they are using. One is the electricity they will be using, and this is I took the example of rice mill cluster. They have been using a rice husk for boiler fuel, and the third is a diesel. When we asked the industry person, what is your energy consumption, she just replied that we have been consuming the electricity of this much units per month. You have to do something so that our energy bill reduces. So the point to note is that most of the small industries think that the thermal energy is not of importance, or big, as it is not metered in small units. They are not aware that it's also one of the energy form they are consuming and they are losing also. So when we have prepared an energy mix basket for that rice mill, and we found that the electricity which they are talking that energy consumption, it is only 6.5% of the total energy consumption. You see the rice has come in, the boiler fuel consumes almost, consumption is 93%, but the electricity consumption is only 6.5% of the total energy mix per year. So this shows the importance how, so we have to give importance to the reduction of thermal energy instead of focusing on electrical energy. That's what to be noted. So next is, if you see the energy balance diagram of the boiler, if fuel energy input is in the form of fuel, maybe rice husk, coal, wood, anything, it is in 100%, it enters the boiler. Boiler will have a losses, like dry flue gas loss will be maximum, and then radiation and convection loss and the blowdown loss. These losses will be there. After that, the boiler efficiency will come between 70 to 80%. This 80% of input energy is given in the form of steam. That is the output of boiler. That steam enters the end use, means for process usage. During that usage also, we lose steam in the form of distribution system that we will be discussing in detail. Almost 5 to 15% is lost in distribution. So finally, the end use load will get only 56 to 75%. The energy manager of the plant, his main concern shall be like he has to improve the overall efficiency so that the fuel cost, consumption cost should come down and specific energy consumption should come down. So this is a boiler's combustion chemistry. What happens inside the boiler? We supply fuel and air inside the furnace using a burner, and both mix together because of 3 T's. We need a 3 T's: time, turbulence, and temperature. It after because of the combustion process, the byproduct we call it, but it is being waste as a flue gas. It comes out, that is CO2, nitrogen, and water vapor, and oxygen, and carbon monoxide. It shall be in very little amount, but anyway it will come out. And some losses, some fuel will be lost in as an unburned. So 2 important reactions happening is, one is the carbon oxygen with carbon combined with oxygen to form a carbon monoxide. If it is a lack of oxygen, that releases only some 4000 BTU per lb of energy. If it is a proper combustion, carbon mixed with oxygen to form a CO2. It will release energy of 14,000. So you see that because of lack of combustion, we lose almost 10,000 BTU per pound of fuel. So that's what we wanted to mention in this. If I am going fast, if I am audible, Sarath, please, you can call me or you can announce me, okay?
Okay. There was a suggestion from the participant now, sir. Could you please slow a little bit?
Slow, no, sure. That's what I also felt.
Okay.
So third is a PAT audit performance assessment of boilers and systems. So this is a simple introduction. We'll be briefly elaborating about the how we have to do a performance assessment of boiler in case of PAT audit. In normal also we have been doing the same thing. What are the things we will be doing relevant to boiler systems? Are boiler, main boiler, efficiency calculation, and finding its losses. I will explain in later. For air preheater, we have to find leakage percentage and gas side efficiency. So how to do this? This is a APH. Flue gas enters one side and exit outside to chimney. One side air is entering and taking the heat from flue gas and exiting, going to furnace. So we have to note down the oxygen percentage in the flue gas before and after APH. If the oxygen percentage has increased in between these 2 points, it means that some air has entered in the flue gas path from the airline. Why it happens? Because the airline is in high pressure. This line is in vacuum, means lesser pressure. So because of that, and as well as because of various reasons like seals damaging and other reasons, the leakage happens. That percentage, how much leakage percentage, we have to calculate using a formula. There's a formula like O2. We'll see that O2 percentage divided by 21 minus O2. That is a formula we have to use. And then the purpose of finding is that if it is more than the design value of leakage percentage, it will have a effect on heat rate, boiler, unit heat rate. Heat rate will increase, so causing a high energy fuel consumption as well as losses also will increase. So second point is gas side efficiency. As the leakage happens, what happens? The air entering into the flue gas path will consume heat to get its moisture to vaporize to vapor, as well as it will reduce the flue gas temperature. So we may be thinking that the flue gas temperature is reducing because APH is performing good like that, but it's not the case. Because of the leakage, the flue gas temperature has come down. So that will reduce the APH efficiency, that we call it as a gas side efficiency. The formula is like a delta T, means what is the temperature difference happening between this point and this point, divided by the total temperature head available for the, assume it as some heat transfer equipment. But one main important point is that the temperature outside the APH shall be corrected for a leakage. Again, there is a big formula for that. We have to use oxygen percentages and all. We have to correct the temperature. That will be in actual case, suppose if it is a APH exit temperature is some 170 degrees Celsius, but if you correct to leakage, it will come down to 160 degrees Celsius like that. Sorry, it will increase to 180 degrees Celsius. We'll be seeing that with the case studies. So third is a ESP leakage. Same ESP leakage is also, the formula is same, 21 divided by 21 minus O2. Sorry, O2 percentage divided by 21 minus O2 percentage. That will give a EPS leakage. Third is for fans, ID fan, PA fan and FD fan. We have to calculate the efficiency, it's fan efficiency, and what is the loading ratio, those things we have to calculate. The fifth is a coal mill. For coal mills, we have to find, this is a coal mill. Air is supplied to coal mill to carry the coal powder. The coal is supplied to coal mill. The coal is crushed in the coal mill so that the coal powder forms. That coal powder goes to the boiler. This is a simple process of coal mill. What we have to find, how much ton of coal is transported per unit of energy consumption. That we have to find out. The coal mill, how much power it consumes per ton of coal. Second is a air-coal ratio. How much air is required to transport 1 unit of coal? That we have to find out. Third important point is a coal mill temperature. The temperature point at this exit of the coal mill needs to be monitored regularly, because if it reduces, what will happen? We are sending a cold air, little cold air to the boiler furnace, so thereby the heat rate will increase and the efficiency will come down. So we need to keep an eye on coal outlet temperature, and we have to keep it as per the design temperature. And sixth point is about boiler feed pump and condensate extraction pump efficiency, because this plays a major role in boiler system audit. And seventh is an insulation heat loss study. Insulation, because of lack of insulation in boiler and steam piping surfaces, there will be radiation and convection losses that we have to study using a thermal imager. We will see one by one. So what is the procedure to evaluate a boiler efficiency? The one is a direct method and second is a indirect method. So direct method is a output divided by input. Means input is given in the form of fuel. So mass flow rate multiplied by GCV will give an input to the boiler. And the output is a steam. Boiler's output is a steam. So steam's enthalpy minus enthalpy of the feed water, which will give output. So this will give a efficiency of the boiler unit. But the problem with this method is even a small error in any measurement will end up with a high deviation in efficiency calculation. So because of that, we don't use this direct method. We normally use, as per the standard PTC 4.0 also, it is mandated to use an indirect method, that is a heat loss method. We'll see that. One is this is for, let's say, the boiler, fuel and air is given as an input and flue gas is going out to chimney. What are the losses? One is a dry flue gas loss and hydrogen loss, moisture in fuel loss and moisture in air loss. This hydrogen, moisture and moisture in fuel, moisture in air, it is because the hydrogen converted combined with oxygen to form a water. That water as well as this moisture and this moisture will get heat of combustion from inside the boiler and converted to water vapor. So it consumes energy from the furnace, so it absorbs energy and wasting a useful heat. And the fifth loss is a carbon monoxide loss. This is because of means the lack of oxygen. Seventh is a fly ash loss and bottom ash loss. This is applicable for coal boilers. And surface loss. This is due to the skin temperature, boiler skin temperature, as well as insulation. And this is a blow down loss. This also will be there for boilers. So we'll see one by one. Like for dry flue gas loss, we have to find out the oxygen percentage in the APH outlet, sorry, inlet, and flue gas temperature at APH outlet. There are formulas. Using that, we will be calculating dry flue gas loss. So using an oxygen, if you find oxygen, we know that for every fuel there is a theoretical air. Theoretical air is calculated using a hydrogen, carbon content and nitrogen. These are the parameters which we will be using to calculate the theoretical air requirement of the fuel, whatever the fuel it may be. After calculating theoretical air, we have to find how much excess air we have been supplying. For that, we need an oxygen measurement. We use a flue gas analyzer and measure the oxygen percentage. If oxygen percentage is some 10%, if let's say, for example, just 2%, the formula is like a O2 percentage divided by 21 minus O2. That formula will give a excess air, how much excess air is available. If it is 2%, the excess air will be 10. So suppose theoretical air for burning 1 kg of coal comes as a 10 kg, let's say. If it is an excess air of 10% means, so we are in total air supplied is 10.1. Sorry, 11, it will be like 11 kg of air is being supplied in actual case. That we have to calculate. From that, we have to calculate how much flue gas is also flowing, mass flow rate of the flue gas. That we will be using in the formula. And we have to take a raw coal for proximate analysis. From proximate analysis using a formulas, we will calculate ultimate analysis, means how much carbon, hydrogen is available in the fuel. Third is a sample of coal mill rejects for GCV analysis, so that we can find the loss due to coal rejection. And fourth is a fly ash and bottom ash losses. This loss, fly ash and bottom ash losses. We have to collect the sample and we will measure the GCV. Thereby, we will find the how much energy is lost in ash. So one point of concern is that in flue gases, which data need to be taken, oxygen or CO2? Using a CO2 also you can find the excess air, but it is preferable to take an oxygen reading. The reason is that if you see, flue gas contains oxygen, CO2, carbon monoxide in very ppm level, and SO2. But if you see the correlation between oxygen and excess air, as the excess air increases, oxygen also increases proportionally. But in case of CO2, as the excess air increases, the CO2 is reducing, not exactly proportionally, little bit deviation is there. For example, for LDO, excess air increase, if it is increased from 2 to 10%, causing a O2 in flue gas to increase by a factor of 5. But the CO2 drop by only 10%. So because of that, it is preferable to use a O2 reading for finding a excess air. As well as oxygen percentage is less sensitive to the variations in the chemical compounds of the fuel. But CO2 in the flue gases depends on the carbon percentage in the fuel. So, but O2 is not affected by the carbon content in the fuel. So, because of these reasons, we prefer to take an oxygen reading to find the excess air. So this is one sample boiler efficiency calculation, results of the calculation of 210 megawatt thermal power plant. All losses are as per the design how much it should be, but in actual case how much it is mentioned. The efficiency also as per the design it should be 77, but in actual it is 69% only. So we'll discuss about the losses in detail. First loss is a dry flue gas loss. What are the causes? The causes are high excess air and high flue gas temperature, means stack temperature. So first we will see high excess air. So how to find, we have discussed using an oxygen measurement in flue gas using this formula. We'll be calculating this one. There is a typo error, so it should be O2%. First we have to find the theoretical air, that is a stoichiometric air. For example, coal, it is a 10 kg of air is required per 1 kg of fuel. It will vary as per the various types of coal as per the specifications of carbon and hydrogen content in the coal. But even if you supply this optimum air, is it enough? But no, it's not enough, because inside the furnace, the combustion cannot happen. Means each carbon particle will not mix with the oxygen particle exactly. So we need to supply little bit of excess air so that the complete combustion takes place. So we have to find the optimum excess air levels for each fuel. Like for example, for coal, optimum excess air is 15 to 20%. So it means that almost if you supply 12 kg of air per 1 kg of fuel, it will have a very good combustion. So you see this drawing which we have discussed. One is in bottom, the air volume is mentioned in bottom. In vertical line, gas concentrations. For example, if the air volume increase from 60 to 180, what happens? You see, the 100 is a theoretical exact stoichiometric air. For example, let's assume that if it is a coal, this is the point of 10.7. So if you see at 10.7, what happens? Little bit of this dotted line is carbon monoxide. If you increase the air level from low to high, the carbon monoxide starts reducing and it reaches to 0 at one point. And what about CO2? It is increasing to certain level. After that, even if you supply a huge amount of air, it will not increase further. It starts reducing. But the oxygen, means oxygen measured in the flue gas. What happens? It starts increasing only after the stoichiometric ratio, means 100%, and it keep on increasing as the excess air increases beyond the required air levels. So how to control this excess air? We know that excess air is directly proportional to dry flue gas loss. We need excess air, but it should be optimum. If it is a coal, this is the optimum point, means just above the theoretical air level. So this red line is the optimum point for all fuels, we can say. Little bit more than the theoretical air requirement. If the excess air levels increases, it will carry a temperature from the combustion and it will exit to the chimney with wasting. So that is the biggest loss happens in any boiler. So the control mechanism is by FD fan. We can use the FD fan speed as well as damper control for small boilers I'm talking about. But this is called a boiler tuning, means what we do, we put a flue gas analyzer in the exit. We observe the O2 level. We have to use the damper, so that we have to adjust the damper so that the excess air levels are reduced. Means O2 in the flue gas analyzer shall show some 2%, like that. Okay. At that point, we fix the damper position. But if we do that manually, is it enough? If you see that the factors which affect the excess air is air density, and because temperature of air is proportional, indirectly proportional to the density. If the temperature of air increases, the density will reduce. If we do the boiler tuning at morning 6 a.m. for, let's say, in the evening, what happens? Temperature will increase, the density will come down. So the airflow will come down. So it will go to this zone, like a combustion, lack of combustion zone. So this will have a big effect on the boiler efficiency. So another factors like fuel flow rate and fuel specification also will affect, because if the fuel flow rate varies, we need to supply a more air or less air. Fuel specification also will have an effect on the excess air requirements. If you see 2% increase in stack oxygen increases the fuel consumption by 1%. So we have to be very careful on finding the excess air and setting. So second reason for dry flue gas loss is a stack temperature. One is, if you reduce the stack temperature by using a heat recovery options like economizer and APS, the efficiency of the system will increase. We will see in detail how every 20 degrees Celsius increase in stack temperature will drop the efficiency by 1%. This is one case study example of batch audit of TPS. They have 4 units. If you see that the stack temperature was very high, 183 degrees Celsius, but in fact the design temperature was 143 only. So this has caused a loss of this much, almost to 13.24 crores. If they optimize the stack temperature, they can achieve this much savings. Second is a hydrogen loss or enthalpy loss. What are the causes? One is a hydrogen in fuel and moisture in fuel and moisture in air, supplied air. So hydrogen in fuel will, we have told, will mix with oxygen to form a water. that water and these moistures will take heat of combustion to form a steam. So that is a loss. Hydrogen is very high in natural gas. So normally this loss is very high if we are using a natural gas as a fuel. It is almost 11% for natural gas and 7% for flue gas. Sorry, flue oil. So how to prevent this loss? We can control the flue gas temperature, but it will have a very less effect on this loss. So another method is that condensing heat exchanger, that means condensing economizer, can be used to reduce this loss appreciably. So third is unburnt loss. That is because of lack of combustion, lack of oxygen, carbon mixed with oxygen to form a carbon monoxide, which releases lesser energy than the actual energy. The reasons are like a high primary air flow, fuel size also will be a reason for carbon monoxide, and low air supply. The combustion needs 3 T's: time, turbulence, and temperature. Means enough time in the furnace shall be given to the fuel to burn completely. Second is enough turbulence so that the mixing will happen properly. And temperature, enough temperature shall be available inside the furnace for proper combustion. Most of the time, because of lack of time, this carbon monoxide formation happens. For example, this is a fuel, air enters the boiler, exit through ID fan. The ID fan job is to maintain a draft, means pressure inside the furnace. The optimum draft is -2 to -5 mm of water column. If the draft is very low, means if the pressure is lower than this optimum level, it means that ID fan is at very high speed, so that pulling the flue gases very fast. So the time given for complete combustion of fuel is reduced. So that causes a formation of carbon monoxide. If the draft is very high, if the ID fan is rotating very slow, what happens? A high airflow will be there, causing excess air, and so heat transfer will be low. Dry flue gas loss will increase. So it should not be neither high or low. We have to maintain the optimum furnace draft. What we have to do? We have to have a pressure gauge in the furnace. The operator shall continuously monitor the pressure gauge and adjust the ID fan. Maybe if the ID fan has a VFD, it is very well. Otherwise, the damper control also can be done so that the draft is maintained. Fourth loss is about radiation and convection. This is mentioned in the by percentage of the rating, percentage at full rating. If you see that at fully loaded boiler will have a very low percentage, from 1% it will maybe, but as the loading reduces, boiler load reduces, it can go up to 6%. So it is always suggested to operate the boiler at 70 to 80%, because the boiler will have a highest efficiency at 2/3 of its capacity. So that we have to note down. So what are the parameters to monitor while operating a boiler efficiency? One is a steam flow, and is a steam pressure, fuel flow, and evaporation ratio, stack temperature, oxygen in flue gas, feed water temperature, furnace draft, and the blow down TDS. Fourth is the factors affecting the boiler efficiency. One is a stack temperature. If the stack temperature increases, the efficiency will go down, because it carried away the useful heat from the furnace. Second point we have to decide is whether the efficiency calculations are as per GCV or NCV of the fuel, because that we have to finalize. We are normally in PG test what they have used, whether the GCV or NCV, we have to find out, and accordingly we have to use the same thing. Otherwise the deviation will be there in the efficiency. That will again confuse us. Third is a fuel specification. Initially, the boiler, when commissioning, they found some fuel specification was this much, and as per that, they set the excess air levels, everything, theoretical air requirement and excess air levels. But is it enough? If you see that, it is not enough, because if hydrogen increases, the loss will increase. So the hydrogen to carbon ratio shall be lesser, so that the efficiency improves. And the fourth point is the excess air levels. That is very important for limiting the dry flue gas loss. And atmospheric air temperature. For every 10 degrees Celsius increase, the efficiency will increase by 0.5%. This is because the hot air is entering, so that the amount of heat to be given by the fuel is reducing. And the sixth point is the relative humidity. If relative humidity of the air increases, the efficiency will come down. Because if you see in rainy seasons, your efficiency will come down, because the air will have a moisture content. That moisture enters the boiler, consuming heat, useful heat, so efficiency will come down. And draft furnace pressure we have discussed. Eighth point is the feed water temperature. So we will move on to the energy efficiency improvements and action plans with case studies. First point is excess air control. So we have discussed in earlier slides about what is the effect of excess air in dry flue gas loss, and how we have to control the excess air percentage. So how to control? One, we have discussed that by adjusting a FD fan damper, but that will not have a permanent solution, because of various factors, like fuel consumption may increase or reduce, as well as the fuel properties also can vary, as well as the temperature of the air varies, so thereby the air volume required is to be varied. So we suggest to go for an oxygen trim control. This is one of the control mechanism, which the flue gases analyzer will be installed online continuously. That O2 level is measured online, and using a control O2 trim control, what it will do, it will take the data from the O2 in the flue gas, and as per the O2, it will adjust the fuel and air. Thereby, it will have a proper excess air, means optimum excess air can be maintained. And another control is a cross-limiting combustion control. This is also on another control, nothing but it also take the flue gas analyzer data, air flow and fuel flow will be controlled more precisely, because what it will do, it will not allow the burner to go into incomplete combustion, means lack of oxygen will not be there. It will maintain a proper mixture, thereby we can have a optimum excess air control. As 1% reduction in excess air will have a 0.5% increase in efficiency. What are the factors affecting the O2 trim? Is burner design, fuel selection, and load swing. These are the factors which will affect the excess air levels and oxygen in flue gas. This is one case study from BE Energy Audit of Poly Textile Tech Cluster. They have the cluster was using boilers of various sizes from 1 to 4 TPS. Fuel was residual pet coke from Reliance Industries. They have installed O2 trim control. Thereby, if you see, initially the O2 level was 15%, but after that they could achieve a O2 of 8%, means a reduction in the excess air. So excess air supply was 61. Initially it was 250%. After that, after the implementation of control, only 61%. Thereby, they could achieve a fuel of saving of 13 kg per hour. Total investment was 3 lakhs and the payback was 5 months. And this is another, because if you reduce the excess air, another savings are like FD fan load will come down. FD as well as ID fan loading will come down. So there also the power consumption has reduced in FD and ID fans. Thereby they could achieve a saving of almost 5,46,000. The investment for controlling the FD and ID using a VFD was 5 lakh total, including an oxygen trim. So second action plan is reducing a flue gas exit temperature. So what is prohibiting us to have a lesser flue gas temperature is acid dew point temperature of various fuels. So what happens in fuel will have a hydrogen that mix with the oxygen in air to form a water vapor, and sulfur in fuel forms a sulfur trioxide. These both fuels will mix together to form a sulfuric acid. When the temperature in the stack reduces to its dew point temperature, what it does, it becomes a acid, wet acid, and it forms on the path of the flue gas ducts, thereby corroding the ducts, flue gas ducts. We can find how much is the dew point temperature for our fuel using this chart. Means first you have to find the sulfur content in the fuel, and using that, using formulas, you have to find how much ppm sulfur trioxide formation is there and water formation is there. Using this chart, we can find, for example, if sulfur trioxide is 100 ppm in my fuel, and let's say it is hydrogen is 12.5%, then the point will be like here, like means 162 degrees Celsius is the dew point temperature. We should not come near to 162 in the flue gas temperature. So this is the limiting factor. We'll see how to overcome this factor. One simple way to reduce the flue gas temperature is using an economizer and air applicator. This is a boilers. I'm talking about most of the MSME boilers doesn't have a APH or economizer, so they can use this technique to reduce the flue gas temperature. This is the boiler without air preheater or economizer. The fuel and air comes and it goes to stack without waste gas to stack without recovering any heat. So this is with economizer, means this after combustion the flue gas enters the economizer, first giving its heat to water, feed water, then it goes to air preheater. Here the air inlet air will take the heat from flue gas, then it enters the stack. Thereby the heat recovery happens in two locations. One is the economizer and second is the air preheater. Thereby the feed water boiler feed water temperature also will be increased, as well as the air temperature. This air temperature also will be increased. You see that if you increase the feed water temperature by 6 degrees Celsius using an economizer, the fuel consumption will come down by 1%. Second is if inlet temperature increases by 21 degrees Celsius, the flue gas fuel consumption will reduce by 1%. As per the BE audit report, if the boiler stack temperature is of 240 degrees Celsius, boiler feed pump feed water can be raised to 80 degrees Celsius, and the air temperature can be raised to 100 degrees Celsius. This is the case study from energy audit of BE textile cluster poly. The quantity initially it was economizer was installed on 3-ton boiler. Quantity of heat available in flue gas was this much, and feed water they could increase the feed water temperature by 62 degrees Celsius. Thereby cost saving was almost 14 lakhs they could achieve cost saving. Cost of economizer was 1.8 lakhs, so thereby the payback period was less than 2 months. This is about air preheater. Initially the exit flue gas temperature was 240 degrees Celsius, but acid dew point temperature was 120. So they tried to reduce the extract heat from flue gas so that the temperature should come down to 120, near to 120. They used air preheater for that. The annual fuel savings achieved was 53,000. They have achieved cost of almost 2.6 lakhs they could achieve. Payback was less than 9 months. This is that case study which we have discussed. This is the air preheater installed at Simantar Fabtex Limited, Pali. There is a YouTube video also regarding explaining how the technique works and what it is. We can go through after this when you are free. So second option is that we have reduced the flue gas temperature using economizer and economizer and air preheater to certain point, but we cannot reduce beyond its acid dew point temperature. So for that we can consider installing a condensing economizer. This is not famous among the industries, but it has come up in foreign countries and as well as in India also. In Pune, few of the industries have installed. What happens? The technology is like this: the exit flue gas temperature. If you see, this is the highest exit flue gas temperature, and it is if you recover the heat, the temperature starts reducing. The vertical axis is boiler efficiency. The red line is a sensible heat transfer only, means heat transfer which happens in the APH and economizer. This red line it has very little impact on the efficiency improvement. But when you start recovering the latent heat, means the moisture formation, the moisture vapor in the flue gas, how the water converts to vapor by absorbing a latent heat of vaporization. If you start recovering that latent heat, the efficiency will have a huge improvement. You see, from 87 it reaches to 95% approximately. So this is where the sensible and latent heat transfer happens at condensing economizer. If you see, hydrogen and oxygen forms H2O, particularly in natural gas which has a high hydrogen. 1 kg of natural gas will give 2.2 kg of hydrogen, water vapor, by consuming a 17% of the supplied natural gas volume. If you supply 100 meter cube of natural gas to a furnace, almost 17 meter cube of natural gas is consumed for its converting from water to water vapor. So that we have to recover back using the condensing economizer. This is one case study about the implementation, like natural gas and air enters the boiler. Initially it was like flue gas at 250 degrees Celsius goes to economizer, heating the feed water, and exit the economizer at 160 degrees Celsius to chimney. So they didn't want to reduce further because of acid dew point temperatures. So after that they installed a condensing economizer where they could use the water, normal water at 25 degrees Celsius for heating to 65 degrees Celsius. Here they have extracted the latent heat of vaporization in the flue gas, so that the flue gas at 65 degrees Celsius it will go to the chimney, and the condensed liquids have to be collected down and it should be sent for a treatment, because it will have a sulfuric acid. It is not good to just leave the condensate. So we have to treat that condensate carefully. The material selection of this condensing economizer shall be as per the fuel composition, and chimney also material shall be carefully selected, otherwise the corrosion will happen in this also. I took this from this website, you can go through after that. In this case the material of construction was SS304. They could achieve the payback less than a year. The boiler capacity was 10-ton boiler at 17 bar. So this is temperature versus efficiency. As if you see, flue gas temperature reduces, the efficiency improves because we are recovering the heat being wasted in flue gas. Only the boiler will have a efficiency of 79 to 80%. With the economizer, the efficiency can go to 84%. If you install further condensing economizer, you can reach the efficiency of 92%. The stack temperature also will come down to 50 to 65 degrees Celsius. So third loss is about APH leakage loss. We have elaborated on how to calculate leakage percentage and what are the effects on APH leakage. This is a case study about 16-ton boiler where the leakage percentage was calculated as 80% using the formula. So flue gas temperature at APH inlet is 280 degrees Celsius and the outlet is 130. This is not an actual temperature. We have to adjust as per the leakage percentage. If you adjust, in fact, the outlet temperature, actual temperature may be 140, thereby increasing the dry flue gas losses. So what we have to do, we have to arrest the leakage. If you after arresting, if you see the fan, this is the fan power consumption. During leakage, it was 15 kilowatt, and after leakage, it was 13 kilowatt. Thereby, 2 kilowatt saving was there, almost 1.3 lakhs per annum. They could achieve its saving. This is the picture. If you see this, it's a normal small boiler. So APH tubes were broken like this. So they have replaced many tubes, thereby arresting the APH leakage. This is the impact of leakage in PAT audit of thermal power plant. They have 4 units. Leakage percentage was calculated as 23%, 15%, like that. So it was suggested to reduce the leakage percentage. Thereby the efficiency, boiler efficiency will improve by this much percentage. Because of this improved efficiency, the savings will be almost 3000 TOE equal to 2.8 crores they can achieve a savings. So fourth point is removing the unnecessary pressure drops. We have to go through the steam lines and pumping systems and find that is there any unnecessary pressure drops exist in the system. This is one case study. One is the drum level, boiler drum level control by BFP scoop or VFD. In big power plants of 210 megawatt, BFP scoop was used. In small plants, they use a VFD. Both can be used to control a drum level. Normally, during one of the audits, what happened was we observed that this is a schematic diagram. After BFP, the feed water goes to economizer through HP heaters, and then it goes to boiler drum. The drum level is maintained by the scoop by adjusting the scoop. In addition to that, the pressure is maintained by the there is a field control station is there. This control valve. This will be adjusted so that the drum level and flow will be maintained. But it is not necessary. We can open these valves. These valves will create unnecessary pressure drops. You see, almost 10.6 per dP is created by these valves. So it is suggested to open these valves fully. At normal load conditions, there will not be any problem. Only during the huge load fluctuations, the controlling the drum level will be very difficult. For that also there is a solution. The solution is they can use a 3-element control. It is a control mechanism which uses the steam flow, water flow and drum level, and accordingly adjust the VFD or scoop. Thereby, it will control the drum level efficiently. So if they open this, the valves fully, what happens? The DP will come down to 0. Thereby, the excess energy being wasted in BFP will come down. You see this, each BFP of both the units can have a saving of almost 170 kilowatt, which will have a yearly saving of almost 72 lakhs per annum can be saved. Like that, we have to see for normal pumps also whether any unnecessary obstruction is there or not. The fifth point is about condensate recovery. Feed water is nothing but a condensate and makeup water. It's not possible only if contaminated. We suggest to recover all the condensate. Not suggested only if the condensate is contaminated, it should not be recovered. Still, we can recover it's a flash steam, not the condensate should not be recovered. So, what is the purpose of recovering the condensate? One is it has a heat energy, so that it will reduce the fuel consumption. Second is a very good quality water. Condensate is treated and impurity is less water, so it is a very good quality water. If you don't recover, you have to add makeup. Thereby, it will have a very effect on the. It will increase the cost of water treatment. Third is it will reduce the sewer disposal cost, because if you don't recover, it will go to sewer and we have to incur expenditure on disposal. And finally, it will reduce the fuel consumption. So this is one case study of one plant where the condensates from various steam trams of almost 3 meter cube per day was wasted like this before. But after that, they have implemented this condensate recovery system with pumps and tanks and all. They could achieve a recovery of at 50 degrees Celsius. Fuel saving of almost 6,700 per day was achieved. In addition to that, they achieved the water pumping cost as well as the chemical treatment cost also saved. This is a case study of BE Energy Audit at polytextile sector. There they implemented this condensate recovery system for small boilers as well. That they could achieve almost 3 lakh rupees of energy. Recovery was almost 16%. Sixth point is about flash steam recovery. So what is a flash steam? The technical thing is that this is a TS diagram of water and vapor. What happens? Water, if you start inputting the heat, the temperature will increase to at constant pressure. I am talking about, and this is a saturation liquid point. After that, the further addition of heat will make the water starts boiling at 100 degrees Celsius. It will absorb a huge latent heat. Thereby, it will reach a saturated vapor. After the further addition of heat, it will make the water into steam, superheated steam. This happens for each pressure. So this is, let's say, for example, I am taking atmospheric pressure. This is at 7 bar. If the at 7 bar is 7 bar means has a heat content of enthalpy of 721 kilojoule. If it is suddenly supplied to the flash vessel, simple tank, what happens? Tank is in atmospheric pressure, so it's at atmospheric pressure the heat content is only 419. So difference, this 721 minus 419 equal to 302. This much energy is added to the condensate, thereby the it will have a latent heat of 2260, so that it will absorb this much heat and part of the condensate will get converted into steam, that we call it flash steam. The formula is the difference, sensible heat difference divided by heat at the lower pressure, which will give the how much percentage of flash steam available. This is one case study of pharma unit where they have recovered condensate at 4 bar from various sources and dropped to flash steam recovery vessel. There they could achieve a flash steam. The flash steam will be of normal pressure only. If they have used for another process, it had to be injected into 3 bar steam line. Means 3 bar steam line was there. There they have to inject this flash steam. What they used is a ejector. They have used an ejector to carry this flash steam, low pressure steam, into this 3 bar pipeline, so that they could achieve a steam saving of 2000 tons per year. The bottom will be with condensate water that can be recovered again for some feed water or some other process. So seventh part is on energy loss due to improper deaeration of feed water. The deaeration is the process of removing oxygen and other gases from the feed water. That is a process. Means how it is achieved. The feed water is in the tank, deaeration tank, and the steam at low pressure is given at the bottom of the tank. Thereby, the steam will heat up the water. Thereby, it will the oxygen and other gases will be removed from the water. That oxygen and air shall be removed from the tank using a air vent and vacuum pump at the top. But this air vent will not remove the air exactly. It will anyway remove the steam also. Means steam also will be lost during the process. That we need to monitor, because as in optimized condition, 1% of steam, 0.5 to 1% of steam loss is acceptable. If it is more than that, then we need to correct it. When the makeup water increases, the vent loss also will increase, because the makeup water will bring more oxygen, so that its vent loss will increase. Eighth is a blowdown loss. So in boiler, what happens? Water after absorbing heat converted to steam. If makeup water is increasing, we don't recover much condensate, and we are adding makeup water more. The dissolved solids in the makeup water also will increase, causing a blowdown percentage to increase. It is a loss, because the blowdown water has a heat content. If you during blowdown, we can't recover that also, because it contains the impurity. So it is a loss of heat energy in the system. But we can optimize the percentage of blowdown. That's what we suggest. One is an insufficient blowdown. If you reduce the blowdown, what will happen? The impurities will be carried with the boiler inside the boiler tubes, and it will scaling formation will happen, and the heat transfer will come down. Because of that, dryness fraction of steam also will go down. Means steam will have a moisture particles. It will again further damage the equipment in the process. If the blowdown is very high, what will happen? It's a clear energy waste, and water and chemical makeup water and chemical consumption will increase for water treatment. So we have to optimize the blowdown. So we have to find the blowdown percentage using this formula. Feed water TDS, how much it shall be. For example, at boilers of 12 bar pressure can have a feed water TDS of 3000 ppm. That we need to take the info from boiler OEM. And the makeup water percentage divided by maximum TDS in boiler water. So this is 3000. So this we need to calculate using this formula. What is the present blowdown percentage? We need to calculate. So it is suggested to extract only the flash steam from blowdown because blowdown has a impurities. So it is not suggested to use that for speed water or any other purpose. So this is the methods of blowdown. What happens? Blowdown happens from the boiler of drum bottom as well as from the middle. The bottom blowdown purpose is to remove the corrosion particles and mud like dust impurities. The middle blowdown is to remove the dissolved suspended solids. If it is not removed, it will carry over to the lines and it will corrode these control valves and heat exchanger fouling also will happen. So it is suggested to use the automatic blowdown control system. So what it will do, it will keep on monitoring the TDS levels of the boiler water, and it will accordingly, as per the requirement, it will blow down the water. So it will reduce the boiler losses by 0.5%. So ninth is a steam trap losses. Approximately 20% of the steam leaving a boiler is lost via leaking traps. So we have to assess the trap system, steam trap, for two things: so whether it is working correctly or not. If it is not working correctly, then whether it is failed open position or in closed position. So that we have to find. If it is failed open means what happens? Continuously steam will be blowing out like this. If it is failed closed means blockage. So it will not allow any steam. We may be thinking that it is working fine, but it is sending back the condensate in the steam line, causing a water hammer, and it will damage the nearby traps also because of high loading on the traps. So how to check the steam traps? One is two methods are there in the steam traps. One is a open discharge trap and another is a connected discharge traps. Means if the trap is in open position, it is easy to check. If it is connected with some other line, means condensate recovery or anything, then it is a little bit tedious to check the performance of the trap. If it is open, you see these two pictures. The steam is coming out continuously, and this here the little bit steam. This is a flash steam. It happens because of the condensate coming out at low pressure, from high pressure to low pressure. So if you see the both traps, we can easily find that this is a leaking trap, means failed in open position. This is a normally working steam trap. So if it is a closed connected discharge trap, what are the methods? One is a visual check of its glass. Second is using a sound checking, and third is a temperature assessment. First is a visual check of the trap. The trap will have a glass. We have to see the glass. This also will have a problem. After some years, the visibility also goes down. The problems will be there, but just I'm telling how to check. If you see, the water level will be like this, means just above the baffle. It means that the trap is working fine. You see this picture, see almost steam is filled heavily. Condensate is at the very bottom. This is called blowing. Means high steam flow has caused the leaking trap, so that the steam is going outside continuously, thereby steam is filled in the glass. And third is this status, like a condensate is fully blocked. It means that failed closed, means the trap is in blocked condition, thereby condensate is filled in the trap, thereby it is not allowing a discharge. So another method is listening to the sonic and ultrasonic sounds of the fluid flow using a stethoscope. That we can, that also will find the damaged tracks. And third method is using a temperature, but this will not give a reliable result because the temperature of the steam upstream of the trap. In downstream also steam can come out because the flash steam, it is called a flash steam, can come out, but at low temperature than the upstream, but still it will not have a big difference. So this method is best used in to determine the traps that are blocked. If the trap is blocked, what happens? The upstream will have a condensate, the downstream temperature will be very low. So means because the nothing is coming out of the trap. So that in that case we can use this temperature method, not in case of leaking steam. So 10th point is plugging steam leaks. If you go through the plant steam lines, you can find that there are many leaks coming out, steam leaks coming out from valves and its joints. Those leaks shall be arrested. The energy loss from those leaks can be found using a steam plume length. For example, this is a chart. For example, I took a 1 meter of plume length of steam. What is the loss? You have to plot a diagram on this curve. It will have a 20 kg per hour of steam loss is happening. We have using the enthalpy, we can find out the actual, what is the actual loss. That is almost approximately 2 lakh per year they are losing in this because of this steam leak. So we need to take action to arrest immediately. So 11th point is on steam distribution piping optimization. What are the parameters to note? One is the pipe size, its configuration, its insulation, and the support levels. Pipe size, if the pipe size is reduced, what will happen? It will increase the velocity as well as the pressure drop also will increase. So the optimum velocity limits are for superheated steam, it is 50 to 70 meter per second. For saturated steam, it is 30 to 40. For wet steam, it is 20 to 30 meter per second. If the velocity is has increased beyond this optimum velocities, what will happen? Noise will increase as well as the erosion also will take place. If the branch, for small branches, the velocities are suggested as 15 meter per second only. Using this formula, we can find out what is the diameter required, whether the diameter is enough for that flow or not. Flow, we have the flow of the steam. Length we have. P1 and P2 is the initial pressure and final pressure. So we have all the data. The length shall be adjusted after taking the consideration of its fittings pressure loss. So using the this formula, we can calculate the diameter, whether the pipe diameter is optimum or not. So in steam piping, if the oversized diameter, it means what happens? High capital cost is very high, and its maintenance cost also high. Insulation cost and the surface heat loss cost also will increase. If the pipe size is low, it will have a high pressure drop, and pumping energy will be more, and the leakage rate also will increase if any leakage. So as well as in piping, what we have to do, we have to isolate the redundant steam carrying pipe system. Suppose if any process is isolated long ago, but the steam line will be there at till this point as usual, steam will be supplied in this pipeline continuously. It should not be like that. We have to isolate this pipeline as far back as possible, so that the heat loss and radiation loss can come down. And fixing the steam leaks, which we have discussed, and monitor and quantify the steam process. We have discussed in tool 1 like a steam balancing diagram will help us find which process consumes more energy, and the losses also we can find out. In optimum case, we have to install a drain legs at 30 to 45 meters to drain the condensate, because if streamline carries the condensate, what it will happen? The velocity of steam, let's say 50 meter cube per 50 meter per second. The water particles, if it is there, what it will do? It will also in the same velocity, and it will go like a bullet. That water particles, what it will do? It will damage the valve stems. So if you see in streamlines now, most of the valve stems will be leaking from this point. That is because we may be thinking that the valve is faulty or like that, but in actual case, what happens is a streamline has a water particle. That particles was hitting continuously on the spindle of the valve. Thereby, the gland, everything gets damaged and the leakage starts. So finally, sir, so to remove this water particles, we have to use a moisture separator, or we can go for this drain legs as per standard. Finally, the pipe slope. Pipe slope shall be more than 125 mm for every 30 meters. So it will also remove the condensate. The 12th point is a loss, insulation loss. So we should have a proper insulation on boiler as well as the steam pipelines. We measure the insulation loss using the thermal imager. It works on the principle of anything which is above the absolute temperature will emit electromagnetic radiation. So that radiation, that camera catches that radiation picture, and it gives the temperature also. This is the sample picture of the thermal imaging of some of the audits. You can see the high red portion is means very hot temperature, means insulation loss is there, and because of that, temperature of the surface is very hot. In wherever the insulation loss is there we have a convection loss as well as radiation loss. We have to calculate using the formula as per the surface temperature and atmospheric temperature and other constants. Using that, we have to find the losses. This is a case study about one of the PAT audits where we did an insulation survey using a thermal imaging camera. If you see that they were losing almost, they could achieve a saving if all insulations are made perfect. They can achieve almost 30 to 34 lakhs in the form of fuel, because heat lost in the insulation is given by the fuel. So almost within less than 1 year they can achieve this if they all rectify the insulation. In insulation also, insulation thickness matters a lot, because if you keep on adding, insulation is very costly, as well as if you add unnecessarily high thickness, the only cost will increase. So we have to find the economic thickness, economic cost of thickness, and initial 1.5% of the thickness of insulation is critical to prevent the heat loss. That we need to remember. So the 13th point is the controlling valve passing losses. During the audit, we have observed that recirculation valves, we have to observe recirculation valves are working properly or not, like that. This is a case study about thermal power plants of 210 megawatt TPS, where if you see the condensate extraction pump flow was 475, but the flow to LP heater was only 470, means 5 tons was recirculated back to LP flash tank. The valve was in closed condition, but still valve was passing there, so that this leak was happening. If they arrest this valve passing, it is a means we are giving an input using a pump, and again we are wasting in the form of passing. So if they arrest this leakage, they can have a saving of almost 300 megawatt hour per annum of energy, equal to 9.3 lakhs per annum. Second case study is like a boiler feed pumps. That is also leaking. Almost the flow was very high, 45 tons per hour was the recirculating flow. The valve was in closed condition, but still the valve was passing almost 45 tons. So suggested to rectify this loss, thereby they can achieve almost 2.35 crores per annum. If they rectify this recirculation loss, what will happen? The supplied flow will come down. Means if it is for in this case only 605 is enough for the process, but they developed almost, they were supplying 665 tons, and 45 was sending back. This we all know that pump flow and speed as well as its power consumptions are proportional. If the flow comes down, the power consumption also will come down. What is this? What is the suggestion? Suggestion is like one thing is that they have to rectify this passing recirculation valve, and why the recirculation happens. If you see in this case, BFP pump, our BFP discharge was 170 bar, but the inlet was 16 bar. So this is a recirculation valve. This side it has a very high pressure of 170. This side it is 16 bar only. So the pressure drop is very high. This causes over the years the high pressure drop damages this valve and causing a passing during normal operation. So it is suggested they can consider the drag valves instead of normal flow control valves for this recirculation valve. Means in drag valves, what happens? The steam or water, whatever it may be, the pressure drop happens in various stages, small 20% only maximum. So this prevents the loss getting damaged easily, as well as works for many years. So 14th option is on-off losses. So if you see in normal MSME units and rice mills and small boilers, 1 to 3 ton boilers were used for their process steam. You see, they have a set point, like the steam pressure at 7.5, the boiler will go off. At 6.5, again it will start. So not only the boiler, burner will go off, as well as the other FD fan, all fans, FD fan, PA fan, ID fan, everything will go off. When the 6.5 pressure bar pressure reached, again everything will start. This frequent on-off cycles will destabilize the combustion, and the starting will consume a high amount of energy. This is a loss in the system. So what is the solution? Solution is they can optimize the feeding rate as per the steam consumption, as well as they can reduce this bandwidth. Means it shall be reduced so that it will not go on off frequently. Or a suitable burner control also will have a very good effect on this loss. The fifth suggestion is like fuel switching. So whenever we find that some new fuel have come up, for example, in few states, GAIL India Limited has come up with natural gas. They can so the industries they were using LDO or HFO or other fuels, they can switch to natural gas. Like that, we have to think of the economics of the fuels, and they have to switch to the best fuel. This is one case study about a 210 megawatt thermal power plant where they have used HFO for starting as well as for supplementary as a supplementary fuel with coal. It was suggested to replace HFO with LDO because HFO was consuming an auxiliary steam to maintain its viscosity. The auxiliary steam was continuously given to HFO to maintain its temperature and viscosity. So if we use LDO, this auxiliary steam consumption will go down drastically. This is a sample calculation. They were using almost 5 TPH of steam, auxiliary steam, continuously at the enthalpy of 3000 kilojoule per kg. So this auxiliary steam consumption will go down if they go for a LDO. As well as other churning pumps also they were using, that also can be switched off if they use LDO. So using this fuel switching, they can have a saving of almost 1.5 crores. The investment will be some 20 lakhs, thereby the payback will be less than 2 months. So almost I have come to the end of the presentation. Other energy conservation methods are like we have to provide a dry saturated steam process. This is the diagram of water. If you see, this is dry saturated steam line. It is always suggested to use the steam at near to this point, because if you use superheated steam, it will give up its heat very slowly, so it will not have a very good heat transfer. As well as if you give a saturated steam, means normal saturated steam at this location, it will have a huge moisture content, it will damage the pipeline. So it is better to give a dry saturated steam, thereby latent heat will be used for indirect heating. It will have a good heat transfer properties. The 17th point is we have to go for a proper soot blowing. The automatic soot blowing systems are there, because if the proper soot blowing is not there, then furnace side will have a slagging problem. That slagging will reduce the heat transfer to the water, and it will have an effect on efficiency. And 18th is use steam at the optimum temperature. Optimum pressure also it is good, but it is not suggested to reduce the design pressure of the boiler. So it is better to operate the boiler at optimum its design pressure, but we can go for reducing the optimum temperature. For example, let's assume that at zero, means atmospheric pressure steam line. So one process I am giving a superheated steam at this temperature, but that temperature is not necessary for that process. We can reduce the temperature to this level. That is also one. This temperature reduction will have a very good saving on energy efficiency. And the 19th point is we should use a proper air venting. Means for 0.25 mm of thick air film is equal to almost 330 mm of thick copper valve. It will prevent the heat transfer in the tubes. So it is suggested to go for automatic air vent for maintaining the air vent ppm levels. And the last point is switching to energy efficient equipment. We can consider switching the boilers because I have seen that most of the MSME units have a boilers, very old type of boilers with the efficiency of only 40%. But nowadays the boilers of almost 70% are available, so they can consider switching to this energy efficient boiler by replacing. And another is in power plants they can consider to replace steam ejectors with vacuum pumps for condenser vacuum maintenance. This also suggests this can be taken after proper evaluation. So we have discussed these things like what are the approach and the steam balance diagram and the efficiency, boiler efficiency indirect method of calculation and its losses, and what are the factors affecting the boiler efficiency. In action plans, we discussed about how to control excess air, reduce the flue gas temperature, and the effect of APH leakage loss, and how to remove unnecessary pressure drops, condensate recovery, flash time recovery, blowdown loss, deaeration loss, steam locks, insulation. Like that, we have discussed almost 20 action plans. If we do the energy audit of steam lines as per this procedure, we will surely find suitable applicable action plans from these 20 that can be implemented in your plant. After implementing few of the applicable points, we have to again calculate the fuel savings using this formula. Means surely efficiency will increase after implementing few points. So for example, if 5 lakh per year is the fuel cost, the efficiency have been improved from 70 to 80%, then it will have a saving of almost 62,000 per year in fuel. So this is the final conclusion. We have to analyze the energy consumption in the boiler and steam systems together. We have to measure and monitor the vital parameters continuously for optimized boiler operation. And we implement the applicable energy conservation tips which we have discussed. We evaluate and implement the latest technologies. So finally, because the most boilers are fuels are mostly of fossil fuels, it is already damaging the earth by way of global warming and melting of glaciers, like that. There are many problems happening in the earth. So we have to do some actions, thereby we can reduce the fuel consumption and fossil fuel consumption will save earth. So thank you. This is my email ID. This is my both our email ID. This is my YouTube link. You can subscribe and watch more videos on energy conservation. Now we will discuss the question and answer.
Yes, sir. So we have posted in the chat also.
1 second.
I will just read out, sir. No problem.
Tell me.
Okay. How CO2 percentage decreases after 100% theoretical airflow?
How? CO2 percentage? Complete combustion of hydrocarbons in the presence of enough oxygen produces water vapor and carbon dioxide. So water vapor also starts coming out. So CO2 percentage starts reducing.
And another question is, in indirect method, O2 should be measured at APH output or input, as there may be leakage in APH.
Okay. In indirect, 1 second.
Indirect method.
Okay.
O2 should be measured at APH output, as there may be air leakage in APH.
No. We have to measure. Yeah. APH outlet, considering adjusting the temperature for this one. We have to adjust the temperature for the leakage.
Okay.
Yes, APH outlet only. Yes, he's right.
How to get benchmark of other industries? Is there any method?
How to get benchmark? We can see the BE website. Otherwise, individual industry cluster also can do some few audits.
So how to convert quantity into equivalent ton of oil equivalent?
Yeah, that kilocal divided by 10 to the power of 7 will give a TOE. Getting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just look other. If any of the participants have any doubts, you may please post in the chat box. What should be CO2 percentage in output flue gas of baggage fired boiler?
Baggage. Huh?
Yes, sir.
That is a case to case basis. Now that I have to, optimum is asking optimum. We have to find the oxygen. From that also we can convert to CO2. But my point is that we should not be thinking about CO2 in flue gas for finding excess air.
That's all the queries we have got. If anyone have any queries, kindly raise it. That was a grateful presentation from Nesamani sir. On behalf of EMC and everyone, I extend my sincere regards. Answer one another question we have got: is it necessary to maintain slope for the streamline?
So, is it necessary to maintain slope?
Slope.
Yes, sir. We have to measure. Then only we can. For I have mentioned, we have to have a drain, condensate drain for every 125 mm, like that. That needs to be maintained slope. For every 30-meter length, the pipeline slope shall be more than 125. So then only the condensate will come down. Thereby, it is easy to recover.
So whether GCV method of calculation of efficiency is better or NCV method? Which one is better, GCV method or NCV method?
GCV or NCV, see, it considers GCV considers the recovery of water, whatever the lost in water vapor formation, that is given back like that. It considers, but NCV doesn't consider that. Instead of thinking about which is better, we have to refer our the OEM, what he has, as per his calculation of boiler efficiency, what he has considered. Then only whatever we calculate, that we can compare with the design efficiency, so that we can know the deviation. Otherwise, what happens? If we calculate in GCV basis, we will get some percentage. If the PG test values were calculated using a NCV basis, it will have some other percentage.
Okay. So one more question is there. Which is the quality of steam? What is the quality of steam should be in a tea drying process? What is the
Quality of steam?
What is the quality of steam?
Okay. In steam. Sir, actually, quality of steam in tea drying, whether it is a direct heating or indirect heating. If it is a direct heating, it is better to go for a superheated steam. How much superheat possible is best for direct heating? If it is an indirect heating, then dry saturated steam is good.
Yes, there is another question. Is there any way? Is there any practical simple method to measure the direct steam injection quantity to heat water in a tank, other than using the formula?
Is there a practical implement to measure direct steam injection quantity to heat water in the tank? Simple method means we can know if they know the flow velocity, diameter and velocity, then they can find using the formula Q equal to AV. That they can try, but they should know the velocity. For velocity calculation, again they have to use the this one, the pitot tube and all.
It's condensate, HP, NP, and LP steam lines are not maintained with slope in many industries. Only intermittent reflex and traps are being maintained. This was comment by Parthasarathi.
Yes, yes. Except condensate, steam lines are maintained with slope. Many industries, okay. Okay, that is okay, but it is suggested to maintain a slope so that if any moisture particles are there, it is easy to trap. Because of the slope, it will not move up easily like a steam. So it will come down so that we can easily trap and remove the moisture particles.
So next question is, what is the frequency of inspection of steam traps, and how much we can save by doing it?
So inspection frequency we can set for 6 months, or whenever you shut down the plant and restart the plant, we have to have an inspection. Because during starting, what happens, because of various dust and other foreign particles, these traps get damaged and blockage starts. So it is better if it is a 6 months or in a continuous operation, or if it is in shutdown, they can go for a once in a means after the shutdown. It is suggested. They can have saving almost 20% of the steam is lost in steam traps. You can calculate as per your boiler capacity and enthalpy of the steam.
Okay. So next question is, suppliers of condensing economics.
Yeah, there are some suppliers on Skinda. Yeah, TSPL, one company. What they have done is that they have at a Transparent Energy Systems Private Limited. It's a company. They have a compact boiler of various sizes. The boiler itself includes this condensate, so it comes as a package as well. They claim that the NCV basis efficiency is almost 100%. Means because they have the flue gas temperature at 45 degrees Celsius, almost equal to atmospheric temperature. So they could achieve that, recovering all wasted heat. They can have an evaluation. But one thing, please keep in mind that the material of construction of economizer, condensing economizer, shall be selected as per the this condensate flue gas quality. So that we have to keep in mind, sir. So next
question: what is the optimum load level of boiler for better? Whether the optimum load level is same for all boilers?
For small boilers, it is two-third of its capacity. But for big boilers, they can go for some 80%. Two-third means it will come approximately 75%. But they can for big boilers, loading can be improved to 75 to 90%.
What will happen in efficiency if we decrease 10 degrees Celsius of reheater?
Reheater means he is talking about hot reheat, I think. Yes, surely it will have a effect on heat rate. But for that, they have to refer their PG test graphs. During commissioning, what happens? The supplier of the boiler system does a PG test, and for each deviation in design parameters, he will mention what is the effect on heat rate. That they have to refer, sir. but it will surely affect the efficiency, no doubt.
What are all the basic devices to be used to check the efficiency and steam quality and steam loss in a boiler?
Basic devices to be used for checking the efficiency. For devices means, say for boiler efficiency, we need a flue gas analyzer to measure the O2 level and flue gas temperature. From that, the calculation starts. And other than that, we need a RH value. RH value, relative humidity of the air at that location, and the thermal meters for calculating the temperatures. These are the instruments we use normally. For steam quality, he is talking about the dryness fraction. Actually, in fact, in India, we can say that only one party has claimed that they have an instrument for calculating the dryness fraction, but that too is not sure, means that is also a evaluation basis, means it will use a formula, it will not give a exact dryness percentage. But the dryness can be approximately calculated using its steam pressure and temperature. If you see the steam tables, it will give a dryness fraction. So these are the ways, sir.
Next question is, do we have any portable flow measurement devices for measuring the steam flow in live steam line?
Portable means no, we don't have. Actually, normally USM flow meter can be used only for this one, fluid flow, means water flows. For gas flows, there will be some orifice meter and can be used for gas, but using a pressure drops, it will find the flow of steam. But a portable means portable orifice meter I have not aware of. We have to install the orifice meter in the pipeline.
So, next question is, name of some good suppliers for measuring steam quantity or outlet from the boiler.
I think I suggest that he can mail me so that I'll reply back. Okay, sir.
One more question. What is the minimum temperature of wastewater goes to ETP? Can be saved using heat exchanger.
It is not suggested to use a heat exchanger in wastewater because wastewater will have impurities. Initially it will have a very good heat transfer properties if you install a new heat transfer. But after the while, what happens? The impurities will form a scale on the surfaces. Thereby, the heat transfer will go down. So you will not get much heat transfer, and the payback period will not be period will increase. So it is not suggested to use a heat transfer. If the condensate temperature is very good, they can use they can put it in flash vessel and they can recover a flash steam, because steam will always be a pure condition. That steam can be used in some other process.
Okay, sir. That's all. And some of the participants are requested to share the slides, sir.
Sure, sir. I'll mail you so that you can mail them.
So I will forward it to the participants.
Okay. I'll request my participants that to subscribe my YouTube channel. There you will get more. This presentation also I'll upload, as well as you can see more videos on energy conservation. As well as if you have any requirement for audit, you can please be in touch with our PCRA officer, Kochi, as well as you can email me as well. So this is my mail ID. You can. I'm typing my mail ID. Please note down and please be in touch. Thank you all for your time, sir. I'm really happy.
Thank you, sir. And there is one more announcement to the dear participants. And EMC is organizing a 3-day certificate course on visual comfort, daylighting, and artificial lighting. It's a modeling and simulation training program. Someone is interested to attend the webinar, kindly register in the link, or you may contact EMC or to me. So then, for attending this 3-day certificate course. The details of this program has already been uploaded in the EMC website. So if you want any clarification, you may contact EMC. And thank you all participants for attending the webinar. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for, I thank EMC for giving this opportunity, and thank you all for spending your valuable time with me today. Thank you, sir. We'll meet once more some other
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.